She lifted us up. And that's the light, and that's the light of thought, and that is the light of the Christ, the light of truth. Shine the light of truth. I shine the light of truth. Together. I shine the light of truth. And that light is a thought that will direct the outcomes in your life. The disciples said to Jesus, "Show us where you are so we can find it." And Jesus said to them, "Well, if you've got ears, hear. Light can only shine inside of you when you generate that light. And then you can shine it upon the whole world. And if you don't shine it, how dark it is." It's your responsibility to shine the light, not just for the conditions around you, but also in your life. Charles Fillmore said, "Christ in you, your hope of glory. Only the light of the Christ can purify your subconscious mind." Well, what is light? Well, light shows us the path, the way, shows us the shadows, the things we should avoid. Light gives us illumination and guidance on our path. Light doesn't make us popular, doesn't necessarily make us convenienced, but the light of truth is transformative. Jesus said, "Let your yeses be yes and your noes be no." He said to stand in truth, to stand in the light of truth, not to equivocate. You know, when you say the yes is yes and the no is no, it wasn't the no's hell no and the yes is well if you feel like it, if it's okay with you. Standing in the light of truth. I stand in the light of truth. Together. I stand in the light of truth. But if you want something to transform in your life, you've got to get up to the right altitude. And I remember when I was flying to Asia, I was flying to Taiwan, and there was a 14-hour flight on a 747. And the pilot got on the intercom and said that in the first 45 minutes of that flight, to get up to the 35,000-foot altitude, took as much fuel as the next 13 and a quarter hours.
Oh my goodness.
Now, if you want to change the circumstances of your life, you've got to rev up. You've got to bring forth the light. You've got to shine that light. It's no accident that when my sister was born with the birth defects, my mom used the affirmation that she received from Silent Unity: "You are God's whole and perfect child, aglow with God's light, and spirit." And that light, there was nothing about the physical condition involved in it. It was just light enough to lift her up. And the miraculous healing took place. Myrtle Fillmore sat in the light. She sat in the light, and she had terminal diseases, and she was going to die, and she had 3 kids. She didn't know what to do. And when she sat in the light, something happened. She said no physical healing took place, but she said my mind was held up above negation. That's how it started. So you say, well, I want a result. First, start with the light. Always start with the light. Always start with the truth. Always start with the light of truth, and then get up to the altitude that you need to in order to be above the circumstances, in order to shine forth that energy and generate it. Charles Fillmore was the same way. He watched his wife have these healings, and he watched the circumstances change for her, and he thought, there's something good going on here. I'll have what she's having, thank you. And so he began to sit in meditation and visualize that light, and he said that nothing happened. Nothing happened for a period of time. You know, it's like we go along, we say, well, I'll do my spiritual practice, we get a speed bump, and we stop. But he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going, and his life changed. His physical conditions changed. Where in your life do you need to shine the light of truth? You know, this morning, this light is some powerful stuff. Let me tell you about this morning. Ken Peterson, who was one of the founding 7 members of our church, 55 years ago, we're celebrating our birthday today. And he'd been telling me about this wonderful prayer treatment from May Rowland, and he was describing it, kind of vaguely. So, oh, that's nice. Yeah, bring it to me. I'd love to see it. Well, this week I was working on this talk, and I was thinking about the circumstances I was dealing with 35 years ago when I was going through my divorce, and how I was in such turmoil because I wanted an outcome. And my outcome that I was praying for was, God, heal this marriage, heal this marriage. And the words came to me, no, do not pray for a healed marriage. Pray for the healed relationship between two souls. Two souls. And I thought, what is this soul business? And I asked, well, what does her soul need? What does her soul need? And what came to me was to do some written prayer treatments. I'm going to invite you to do it. There's one that you can pick up right outside the fellowship hall. It's this one. And he just gave me a copy of it, and I made a bunch of copies because it's the very one that I used. And I was thinking this last week, there was one. I remember doing I Behold the Christ in You, which we sang, and we're going to have that in our bulletins next week when we invite our new members up front. We'll sing to them. So you'll have that, and I would write out, every time I put you, I put her name. And I wrote, and it shifted something. But this one also, I found an old copy of this in the church that I served that had been founded in 1921. And they had things sitting around that had been there for years. And it was this prayer. And I used this as my treatment. And I wrote it out. And I got the energy going. I took that stuck energy and moved it up to 35,000 feet. It takes as much energy to move things up to the level that you need to get it as it does to cruise there. But once you get it up there, you can cruise. What did Alice Bailey say? She said, energy follows thought, and this is the form-building aspect of your creative imagination. This process of spiritual direction can become a part of your spiritual life if you do it slowly and gradually. But at first, it may seem labored and profitless. If you persevere, however, you'll find that it becomes effortless and effective. You got to get up to cruising altitude. I've got to get up to cruising altitude. Together? I've got to get up to cruising altitude. This church has been here for 55 years. 56 if you believe some people. It's been here a long time. And we're moving up to another level. We keep moving up to another level. But it requires us as a group to focus on our purpose. And our purpose here, we are a center of spiritual growth. We aren't a this and a that and a those and a these and this other thing and to bring this in and then make this other thing happen. We are about spiritual growth. And you know what? That's not glamorous. But getting up to cruising altitude is not glamorous. You've got to just put in the effort. My dad, I watched him as I was growing up. Every morning he'd sit for 15 minutes getting up to cruising altitude. He'd sit in the living room with his little daily word prayers. And they were little cards that were beautifully printed in different colors. And he'd go through them, had maybe 20 of them. And he'd say them out loud, and then he'd say them silently, and he'd move into his silence. And he did this every day for 15 minutes, getting up to cruising altitude. And I noticed that it put a certain energy into his life. In the last 5 years of his life, he expanded that a little bit more. He moved into something a little bit deeper because he began to do silent meditation as well. And the migraines that he had started having when he was 12 years old that would debilitate him. In his hardware store, we would cover for him maybe once every week or two. He'd have to go upstairs into the bedroom that was there for the people who had built that building and sleep on that old creaky bed for maybe a couple hours to try to get over it. He never had another migraine. Once he started this moving up to a higher level, a higher energy, a higher life. Now, it's not about getting a specific result. It's not about anything tangible. But the results do come forth. But we've got to be willing to see that light. And we're dealing with it with another person. We see them as a soul. We see them as a soul. We're dealing with ourselves. We see ourselves as a soul in evolution. A soul in evolution that makes lots of mistakes. What did Mark Twain, the first time he got a job on a riverboat, he went to the captain and said, how did you learn the location of all the sandbars and all the shoals? And the captain said, I hit them all. We make a lot of mistakes, but those are simply, those markers, we learn from them. You learn from every experience in your life. The purpose of life is not to do it perfectly, it is to learn from those experiences and to get up to cruising altitude. When I was a Youth of Unity member, I was regional representative, and I had a regional newspaper that got banned. Because some kids wrote some articles that offended some ministers. But anyway, that was where I fell in love with ministers, right? So, but there was a poem in it written by a Youth of Unity sponsor that was so profound that I memorized it. Her name was Ilana Belloc, and she was the sponsor from San Rafael, California. And it goes like this. My soul, a caged bird, fly free. Cage, bird, liberator. I am all three. My soul, a caged bird, fly free. Cage, bird, liberator. I am all three. The cage, how are you the cage? Those are those false beliefs, those patterns. Charles Fillmore said, only the light of the Christ can purify your subconscious mind. That's the letting yourself out of that cage, and it's that purification that we're talking about when we say, do your journaling, write that stuff out, get rid of it. But realize that energy follows thought, and you are going to move in a direction not based, you can't control all the circumstances in the past. You can't control all the circumstances in your life. You sure as heck can't control all the people around you. I had a woman come to me and say, I realized I couldn't control my husband because the last time I was able to change a man was when he was a baby. We can't control the people, places, and things, but we can change our thought. Our thought. My soul, a caged bird, fly free. Cage, bird, liberator. I am all three. Bird, what is that? It's my soul. That's the soul itself, the essence of me. And it wants... Your soul wants to be liberated and freed, and you are a soul in evolution. You have gone through so many experiences that you can't even remember, that predate this existence that you can remember. And yet, there is that in you, which is that imprisoned splendor that wants to come out. It's been pushing out through eons of time. And it's that diamond that we meditated on. It's placed in you in the beginning. It wants to come out. That's that bird that wants to fly, but it's in a cage of beliefs, of thoughts. So it takes a thought to open the cage. And the liberator is what? It's your higher self. It's the Christ in you. Charles Fillmore said, only the Christ in you, only the light of the Christ can free your subconscious mind. Now, what is that? Christ. Christ. What is that? Christ. Jesus' last name? Christ. It's a word. It's an abstract concept. What does that mean? What does it mean? Well, the first chapter of John. Logos, word. That's how it was defined. In the beginning was the logos, the word. And what is that? It was a Greek metaphysical concept from about 550 AD. Heraclitus thought it up. It means fiery invisible vapor that pervades the universe, governs change, and has conscious awareness. Oh boy. What is that? That was the Greek understanding of it. He didn't pick a Hebrew or anything within his own culture. He picked this metaphysical concept that was so abstract and out there that it was really out there. And yet that was chosen as the definition. So what is it? That is the light of that spiritual essence that is universal, pervades all the universe, governs all change. It is that which governs creation and the unfoldment of everything. And the unfoldment of everything. And so you're a child of light. So Ken gave me this child of light. I bless you. Why? Because he's plugged into it. Because energy follows thought. This energy is the light that is within you. And our whole purpose in life is to shine that light that is essential and is at our core. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. We visualize the diamond in our heart. We can see light like my mom did with her little baby, just kept visualizing light until the healing took place. Jesus said, you are the light of the world. You cannot hide what you are, just as a city on a hilltop cannot be hidden. Just as people light a candle and put it up on a high stand so that it shines for everyone around them, so you should let your light shine so brightly that everyone can see it and know that God is whole and complete. So what are we talking about? We're talking about moving from a lower thought to a higher thought. from a lower altitude to a higher altitude. A higher thought always transcends and supersedes and overcomes a lower thought if persisted in. If persisted in. And that is the crucial key. Charles Fillmore said sporadic efforts count for little. You have to persist in it. You've got to stay with it. And it isn't the amount of it, it's more the persistence. So much better it is to take a little thought, a little understanding, and apply it on a systematic, regular basis than it is to have a great, big, overwhelming thing and then hit a speed bump and give it up. Work with it, move with it, and be gentle with yourself. You know, James Dilla Freeman struggled with this, he said, all his life, and he got to a point, he says, I just realized that if I hit a bump, I just say, I've come up to here. I've come up to here. And we're all working with it. We're all struggling with it. We're all moving with it. But every one of us, every last one of us, has the opportunity every day to take those circumstances of life and to move into mastery because of them. Move from the path of protection to the path of growth. The path of protection to the path of growth. Protection is about shutting down, playing it safe, coming from fear, manipulating and controlling others to make sure that they line up, getting what we want at the expense of what's highest good. That's the path of protection. But what's the next path? What's the higher path? It's the path of growth. It's the path of growth. And the path of growth is what? It's that which is calling you. It is that path of shining the light of the Christ. It's the path that is moving you into a new place of consciousness, but you have to engage with it. So what are you doing? Well, my dad spent 15 minutes a day getting up to altitude, and when he reached a certain point, he said, I'm going to go deeper. I'm going to go deeper. Now, this is Lent, and we can piggyback on Lent just fine. This, even though it's the second week of Lent, or third week of Lent, or whatever the heck it is, it's like 2.5 weeks, 1.5 weeks, but you can take this because your mind will cooperate with a limited effort, something that is not overwhelming. So just say, well, I'm going to do this one practice, and I'm only going to do it till Easter. And I'm only going to do it in this way. I've got something that I'm working on, and it's working on me. And it's very simple. And every time I catch myself, okay, bring myself back. And that's how you build a habit. 40 days, well, they say 21 days makes a habit, so you got some extra days. You work with something. Take something simple. Move with something. Move with it. Because if you will take something and use this energy of this time, you will move to another level. I remember when I was running the Youth of Unity, I put on 2 Youth of Unity conferences. There were 450 people. And the first year that I ran it by myself, they decided to cut the funding for that department. The ministers who didn't really understand what was going on asked Diane, she deals with this all the time as a person who works with youth and ministers, on the national and the regional level. But every so often you get a group of ministers and they just don't understand. So they decided that I didn't need a full-time assistant. Why does he need that? So they just cut it out. There was no way I could put on a Youth of Unity conference in the 16 hours a week I was working as a ministerial school student. Well, certainly I put in a lot more time than that, but still, there was no way I could do it. Because that 40-hour-a-week person would do all of the filing and the stamping and the letters and all the stuff, all the things that were the detail works. So I asked, and I was in the Silent Unity Peace Chapel, what do I do? And what I got was, spend your first half hour of work meditating. Well, I didn't want to do that. That's time I could be stamping things and putting things in envelopes and filing things. But I went, okay. So I went to the Silent Unity Peace Chapel, and I'd go there and I'd meditate for that half hour. Then I'd come and I'd work. Well, some interesting things happened. First of all, my boss, who understood and was sympathetic, because it wasn't his fault, was able to kind of squeeze out some money from some things he wasn't really supposed to and get me a little bit of help here and a little bit of help there. And it was just enough, except for I couldn't get enough help so that I could double check things and do things in the proper way where you make sure that, you have backup plans. Didn't have time for that. So everything had to go off without a hitch, and you know what it did? It was the most flawless Divine Orders conference ever, and the next year they refunded me, and I didn't spend the half hour meditating, and all hell broke loose. So what does that tell you? It's, okay, I'm gonna take the time. Oh, I don't have time. Well, yes, you do. You don't have time not to. Take the time to move up to that level of consciousness where where there's another place. And focus on what you want. Energy follows thought. Together? Energy follows thought. Once, about 30 years ago, I was going through a really juicy time, and there was somebody who was doing some things that I really resented, and they were rough things. And I don't know, it's been 30 years, so I don't remember if this was a dream or something that came to me in meditation, but I remember the picture. And it was that I was on a carousel and I was reaching for a brass ring, and just as I was about to catch the brass ring, there was a commotion behind me. I turned around and I missed the brass ring. And what came to me was, if you don't focus on the energy that you want to follow your thought, if you're worried about this over here and you're so busy resenting, you know what they said? The problem with resenting a jerk is that it turns you into one. If you're going to turn around and resent this situation, you're going to miss the brass ring. And there was a demonstration. There was something that had to come through that was so powerful that there was no time, energy, or space for me to go back and do this. And I had to focus rigorously. There have been other times in my life where people want to have me go do this or go do that or go do this, but I've got to focus on this. This church, 55 years. This church is one of those things. We are here for spiritual growth. We're not here for everything else. There's a lot of needs that don't get met in this church because we're here for spiritual growth. Spiritual growth. What is that? It's the person who is sitting there who needs to grow and to change and to be. Every one of us in this room is here to move to a new level. And that's what we're here to do together. So I'm going to ask you to pick something in your life that you want to focus on, that you want to shine the light of truth on. Tuesday night we're really going to go deep on this, and we're going to be basing it on Esau and Jacob and all kinds of fun stuff. But I want you to just kind of take something and shine that light of truth. You know, when I was growing up, my parents used to say to each other, use your truth. If one of them was struggling, use your truth. And it's no accident that our textbook is Lessons in Truth. That it's truth. And it's that light that we shine. And that's the truth of our being, is that which is inside of us that we generate, that brings us up to this new altitude. So just take a thought, take this moment, take this thought, and know your energy will follow your thought. It will change. It will change you. It will change you. Take a deep breath and let it out and set aside your papers. And move into this moment. Child of light, I bless you, I think of you, I pray for you. Not in terms of what I think you need or what I think you should do or be. I lift up my thoughts about you. I catch a new vision of you. I see you as a child of light. I see you guided and directed by an inner spirit that leads you unerringly into the path that is right for you. I see you whole and strong. I see you confident and courageous. I see you blessed and prosperous. I see you capable and successful. I see you free from limitation or bondage of any kind. Child of light, I bless you. My soul, a caged bird, fly free. Cage, bird, liberator. I am all three. And so it is. And it's good to make a conscious break from our old thoughts. So take a deep breath, let it out, and set aside the papers in your hands. Make a conscious break from that which has been before. And again, take another deep breath and let it out. And let go. Feel in the palms of your hands a tingling, an awareness of energy. And know that energy follows your thoughts. So where do you want your thought to be? In this now moment, your thought can be anywhere you choose for it to be. Anywhere your mind wants to go. And so in this moment, imagine any circumstance in your life that seems to be limiting you, that seems to be a problem. And I'm going to use a treatment that came forth about 50 years ago. Mayor Rowland wrote it. And I used it at really difficult times in my life to allow the energy of God to follow this thought to effect healing. I want you to take a circumstance, a person, or even yourself, and move with these words. Child of light, I bless you. I think of you. I pray for you. Not in terms of what I think you need or what I think you should do or be. I lift up my thoughts about you. I catch a new vision of you. I see you as a child of light, guided and directed by an inner spirit that leads you unerringly into the path that's right for you. I see you whole and strong. I see you confident and courageous. I see you blessed and prosperous. I see you capable and successful. I see you free from limitation or bondage of any kind. Child of light, I bless you. Realize that you are the light of the world. Generate the light-filled power of your thought. To every circumstance we say, you are God's whole and perfect child, aglow with God's light, life, and wisdom. God, we wish to raise to an altitude where it's free and spacious, where the air is clear. But we know it requires us to put forth this energy. And so we once again visualize light, feel light, see light. We see light shining from our hearts as if our heart space was the center of a multifaceted diamond that surrounds all around us. See the most vivid, light-filled, bright diamond you could ever imagine. Take a moment just to feel what that is like. Every facet fiery with light, shining all around you, vivid. This is the diamond heart, the light placed in the center of you at the beginning of time, moving through time and seeking its full expression right here, right now. Child of light, I bless you. Take a moment to feel, see, and know this light. In this moment, in this light, we see light. Light shows us the way to go. Light gives us the guidance we need. Light shows us where we might need to avoid something, where there's a better direction, a greater path. We move with the light. We see the light because that light is within us. Charles Fillmore said, only the light of the Christ can dissolve those conditions that we find in our subconscious. Only the light. So know that even if we don't know what to pray for, light is sufficient. Light is enough. And this moment is enough for that light. And so it is. We're shining that light of truth. And the energy of our truth light will move forward as we shine that light. That is our thought. So I want us to take as our offering statement, I give in the light and I receive in the light. Together. I give in the light and I receive in the light. And silently. And again aloud together. I give in the light and I receive in the light. And so it is. Amen.